Success is stumbling from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. That was Winston Churchill who said that. We all want to achieve some measure of success. Some will work hard for it. Some will expect it to be handed to them upon a silver platter. But we all have to face failure multiple times throughout our lives. No one wants to fail. If you'll pardon my language, it's a bloody nuisance because it brings our forward momentum grinding to a halt until we can deal with what's happened. It can be our fault that we fail, but then, no matter how carefully we plan, there is always the unexpected that can throw a cog into the works. I cannot stress strongly enough that you shouldn't spend overlong on the subject of blame. If you're at fault, then put your hand up and give yourself a cerebral kick up the backside and move on. If a teammate or a subordinate is at fault, find out the circumstances. If it's negligence, then you need to have serious words. If it's not, then find a way to move on. Blame and fault are highly divisive. They can cause discord, and more importantly, they remove the focus from getting the job done to the wicked malefactor. Failure is a lesson. On the downside, it does waste time and resources, but on the plus side, you now know what doesn't work. You know what you did wrong, and hurrah and huzzah, all being well, you have some ideas as to how to make things right. I know that there are people who take failure very badly, and once upon a time, I was in the same boat. But you can't let it get you down. If you do, you'll never try. If memory serves correct, didn't Edison have to bounce back 10,000 times before he managed to create the light bulb? Now that took commitment and belief in himself and in what he was doing. He believed. That's what you have to do. Robert Kiyosaki said, "Winners are not afraid of losing, but losers are." Failure is a part of the process of success. People who avoid failure also avoid success. The most successful people in the world regularly fail, but they have no problem in bouncing back because they know that so long as they work at something, they will eventually succeed. When you start to fear the dreadful shadow of failure, you start to doubt yourself. You wonder if you are really as good as you had thought. You wonder if you can handle responsibility at work. You might even end up modifying your dreams because success is for other people, not you. In life, you have to be ready to take chances. You have to be ready to take a leap of faith into the unknown. Yes, you might fail, but you will know within yourself that you tried, and that matters. If you know deep within you that you tried, then you know that you can keep on trying until you get the result that you want. If you have a dream and you want to breathe life into that dream, then you have to risk failure. If you can't take that risk, then your dreams will only ever be dreams. I've just realized that all this talk of risking failure makes it sound as if I go into everything that I do expecting the possibility of failure. I don't, and neither should you. I don't even think that failure is a part of my personal vocabulary. I've experienced hiccups along the way, but do they bother me? No. Apart from being a bit of a nuisance, what happens is what happens. So, next time you experience a hiccup, just shrug your shoulders, accept that what happens is what happens, and then look at how you can regain your momentum. I know that it sounds somewhat simplistic and as if I don't take what I do seriously, but that couldn't be further from the truth. I'm passionate about what I do, but I also realize that there's no point in wasting time, any more time than is absolutely necessary. And this philosophy gets me back on track faster than anything that I know. Johnny Cash said, "You build on failure. You use it as a stepping stone. Close the door on the past. You don't try to forget the mistakes, but you don't dwell on it. You don't let it have any of your energy or any of your time or any of your space." Working on the "what happens is what happens" philosophy, use those hiccups that you experience as a stimulus to your growth. What's happened has happened, and there is nothing that you can do to change it. What you can do is allow that incident to give you the motivation never to let it happen again, and to let that motivation drive you forward to where you left off, and then keep pushing you forward. The knowledge and experience that you've gained from the incident have made you a stronger and more able person. Don't hold on to what's happened. It's behind you now, and it's been consigned to history. You might not be happy about what's happened, but you can use it to make a difference to how you move forward. So do it. Chris Hardwick said, "No human ever became interesting by not failing. The more you fail and recover and improve, the better you are as a person. Ever meet someone who's always had everything work out for them with zero struggle? They usually have the depth of a puddle, or they don't exist." I've had plenty of failures in my life, all starting from a very young age. Living in a military environment with depression and not understanding what was happening to me, it not being the kind of world where you talked about things, I was totally screwed up by the time we had our final home posting. And at that time, I was the grand old age of 11 years old, and I had been conditioned to an armed forces environment so much that I never made the transition to what I suppose you could call the real world. I can remember when I was 4, we lived off camp in Cyprus. I found it to be an exciting time as we lived through the final run-up to the Turkish invasion. I can remember once the rebel Iocus second in command stopping outside our house with his truck. I really admired that truck. It had a large, heavy machine gun mounted in the back, and it had a motley crew of bodyguards, all armed to the teeth. As soon as they stopped, I ran for my toy gun, and followed by my younger brother, we went up to the gate, all big smiles on our faces. This was exciting. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I felt so alive. All the guys in the truck had big smiles on their faces when they pointed the machine gun and their guns at us. The question I ask myself now is, were they considering shooting us to create an incident? Because then I could really feel the atmosphere change from one of being indulgent grown-ups to quite a heated argument between two camps. Fortunately for me and my brother, my mother saw what was happening and gave them a good telling off. Maybe that brought them to the senses, because after being told off, they drove rather quickly away. And having been on the receiving end of my mother's ire once or thrice, I can really understand why they didn't stay around for a chat. Then we had our final home posting, and I ended up in what is a pleasant country town set in beautiful countryside. But to me, it was, and still is, an alien environment where I can never really fit in. There are no aircraft, no guns, no bombs. My peer group had no understanding at all, of where I was coming from. School was a nightmare, but I tried, being conditioned to a career in the armed forces. For a while I wanted to be a vet. I hung about with a veterinary practice for at least a couple of years. I even ended up helping with operations. I picked up the knowledge. I knew what needed to be known, but you need rather good science grades to get into vet school. And to be rather polite, I had rather awful grades the first time round, and I spent another year trying to improve my grades. I did improve my grades, but nowhere near enough, so I thought about the law. An interesting subject, so I took subjects to help me get into law school, and even with taking retakes, I still couldn't make it. I think I've kind of come to the conclusion that me and exams really don't mix. Change of tack again. I was determined to get a higher education qualification and signed up for a course in business and finance, which I passed. Yay! College was great. I arrived an introvert, and by the time I'd left, I was vice president of my student union. I was on a couple of college committees, and I'd stood for the presidency of the National Union of Students. I think today that the name of Mad Mike would still ring a bell with more than a few people. The bright future that I had confidently expected never happened. I had so many bits and pieces of work, including voluntary, temporary, and self-employed. All too many jobs I took all too many jobs because it was better them than nothing. As ever, I really struggled to find my place, and just as the future started to look bright, I had a car crash which set me off collecting deep vein thrombosis and pulmonary embolisms. Not a collection that I would recommend. Given that my dear old employer got rid of me at the first available moment, and I found myself selling a training product in a marketplace where the best product was being given away for free. Do I know how to pick them or what? I had another DVT in that job, so I concluded that perhaps a desk role was not a good idea. I eventually found a field sales role selling crisps, chips, or whatever you want to call them. A great employer who believed that I deserved a chance. And less than 2 weeks later, problems with my legs forced me out of that role. I think it's quite possible that I might hold the world record for the greatest number of job interviews attended. I've certainly trawled through over 7 figures worth of job advertisements. Bizarrely, I had very few interviews local to wherever I happened to be. They all required travelling to all corners of the UK. Back in 2007, I moved back up to Scotland because all the recruitment consultants that I spoke to assured me that I would have no problem in getting work. And what were potentially quite a large number of Ps and probably DVTs, and my glorious return to the wonderful world of work fizzled out like a damp squib. It'll be a fair few years ago now, but I finally concluded that no one in their right, and even possibly their wrong mind, was going to give me a conventional job. Having concluded that there was no way anyone was going to give me a job, and given the state of my old carcass, I can't really blame them. I knew that I had to build my own future. 2006, I discovered internet marketing. Now, I'm never going to be the classic marketer, but I learned. I discovered Kindle, and my books have financed quite a bit of my work and got me to quite an interesting stage. There is, of course, a but, and that's my chronic fatigue and the brain fog and everything else, which does rather shorten and make a mockery of my working day. Oh, the fun and excitement. Every year my health gets worse, and there always seems something new to add to my list of decrepities. But still, I manage to walk about 5 miles plus a day, and I still write. I've even got a rowing machine now. So, all being well, which once in a while it does happen, every other day I'm on it, and it's my favourite instrument of torture. Now, I could easily give in and let everything that I've been through count for nothing, but I'll be damned if I'm going to let that happen. I've a lot that I can offer the world, and thanks to the internet, I have the opportunity to create something really special. True, my forward momentum isn't as brisk and as speedy as I would like, but I'm still moving forward. I believe that no matter what happens to you, you can still bounce back and make more of your life than convention and common sense and society would have you believe. Okay, that's more than enough of me. Let's see how you could bounce back should you experience a hiccup. 1. I don't know about you, but there have been times that I could have done more in a situation. I've made mistakes and I've missed out on opportunities. In a situation like that, it's quite natural to have regrets, and depending upon the size of the opportunity, you could feel more than a wee bit miserable. Just because it's natural to mope about feeling sorry for yourself, it really doesn't mean that you have to. The most important thing that you can do is to accept responsibility for your actions and for getting yourself back on track. If you screwed up, you screwed up. Your priority now is to learn from your mistakes, make good on what's happened, and regain your forward momentum. If customers, work colleagues, friends, or family have been affected by your hiccup, then don't just accept responsibility for what's happened. Apologize for it, and when you do that, you'll win the respect of those who were and maybe still mutter a few choice adjectives about what's happened. There's not a lot that you can do about missed opportunities except to keep your eyes open for all that glorious possibility that you will encounter in your future. 2. Just because something unfortunate has happened, there's no need to beat yourself up. Give yourself a cerebral kick up the backside by all means, but don't let it get to you. Having delivered the kick, don't forget to take swift action to remedy the situation. You've just had an opportunity to gain some valuable experience. And once you figure out what went wrong, you'll have gained some valuable knowledge. Your job now is not to be burdened by remorse. It's to show that you can learn from what happened, and that in learning, you've become a lot more experienced and resourceful than you were before the hiccup. 3. Learn not to take yourself too seriously, because if you do, every time you experience a hiccup, its effects will be magnified out of all proportion. Now, there's nothing wrong with self-deprecating humour. It gives you the opportunity to smile at yourself and life, and also reassures those around you that you're in control of the situation. But please remember, There will always be people who don't understand that this is actually humour and it's not self-deprecation. Once you get your laughter under control, please explain it to them. Now then, by being you, you'll be much more relaxed and your mind will be opened to the situation around you. If you can laugh and if you can smile, then you're not being bowed down by negativity and struggling to know where to turn next. I believe that being able to laugh saved my life when I was dying. If it could do that for me, what could it do for you? 4. This might not be for everyone, but it can be a good idea to share what you've learned so that others could be saved from a similar hiccup. Write about it, do a video or a podcast about it. You could write a Kindle book to turn your experience into some different kind of information product. When you're doing this, you're not saying, look at how I screwed up. You're saying, look at me. I'm the expert on this. Do as I say and not as I've done. It's possible that standing up like this could do you quite a lot of good at some point. 5. Wherever possible, make a contingency plan against the possibility that you might encounter a hiccup along the way. Whilst there can always be something that you can't factor in, you should be able to come up with something that can cope with most, if not all, eventualities. By being prepared, you're not going to have to waste any of your time should you encounter a hiccup. You'll just deal with the situation and move on. Thinking on it, there is no real strategy for bouncing back. There are things that you can do to get the right mindset, but the resilience to bounce back and keep moving has to come from you. And if you can't find it, then you're in trouble. People can tell you positive things. They can show you the way, but you have to take the first step. No one can do it for you. One strategy is, of course, the great dream. Have that totally crazy, mad, bonkers, personal moonshot that reaches to the edge of the universe and beyond. And if you've got something like that, no matter how many times you knock back, you've got something that means something to you, that'll help you bounce back and keep you on the track. It's worth finding your great dream if you've not found it yet. Believe in yourself. Have the courage to follow your dream and commit to building a bright future for yourself. If you have belief in yourself, then you know that you have to what it takes to succeed, and nothing will break that belief. If you have the courage to follow your dream, then every time that you get knocked over, you'll get straight back up and resume your forward journey. If you commit to a brighter future, then you're an action taker, and you'll do whatever you need to get the job done. The ability to bounce back is a state of mind. One way you give any hiccups a cerebral shrug of the shoulders and deal with it. The steps that I've outlined will give you what you need to regain control of the situation. They also help to recondition the mind as to what you want from it. Get the state of your mind right, and you have a rapid response team that's ready to deal with any eventualities. Every successful person has experienced failure, and there's more than a few who've found that their employer no longer requires their services. Product development teams and inventors have to go through regular failure until they find what they're looking for. Failure does not make you unique. It makes you human. It's what you do with that failure that determines who you'll be. Said John Green, What is the point of being alive if you don't at least try to do something remarkable? And so, my friends, until the next time, blimey, it's hit 25 minutes. Where am I? Oh, I keep living.